Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. Caleb Jones. It's podcastic. Anyway, so last week, I already did a podcast on the past. I talk about alpha male role models from my past when I was a kid. Today, I'm going to talk about the future. And this is something that I find very exciting and also a little confusing because we are living in an era where in our lifetimes, not only will we face radical change over the next several decades in our lifetimes, but it is entirely possible, matter of fact, very likely, more than 50%, that we may even have to question or reevaluate what it means to be human in our lifetimes. And I don't have a set agenda for this. These are just a few random things. Many of these things I have written about at my blogs. Many of these things I have discussed. Some of these things I have not. But change is coming down the road. So usually when I talk about the future, I'm talking about what? The collapse of the Western world. I talk about the negative aspects. And yeah, unfortunately, they are negative. And yeah, unfortunately, that's going to happen. The United States, Europe, particularly Western Europe, but all of Europe, Canada, these nations will collapse in our lifetimes. And I have several articles and several YouTube videos where I go over more details on what those collapses may or may not look like. And no one knows for sure what they'll look like, but I've analyzed that many times in the past. That is definitely happening in our lifetimes. That's just the way it goes. So there's no saving them at this point. We are 20 years past that window at least. The last chance to save the United States at least was the mid to late 1990s. So we're way past the window where we can vote for certain people or vote for certain parties to turn this shit around. It's basically fucked. And now that I don't live in the Western world anymore, I don't really care. But instead of talking about that today, I want to talk about the positive aspects, or at least the non-political aspects of our futures. And I'm going to try to relate this back to Alpha Male 2.0, things that it'll affect in terms of your dating/sex/relationship life, and as well as your business/financial life. So let's talk first about, let me give you an overview. An overview would be that in the next decade or two, we're going to have things like genome therapy, where we will actually be able to modify our bodies at the genomic, is that a word? Genomic level. And this means several things. This means that they will be able to do things like cure cancer, things like that. Pretty cool. Yes, they will cure cancer in our lifetimes. And if they can't cure it, they can at least contain it, where they can set, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert on this, although I do work with biotech companies in my consulting business. So I've talked to a lot of scientists about this, but if they can't cure cancer, they can at least arrest it, where if you have cancerous cells, they can cover that with a bunch of safe cells where the cancer doesn't spread, and then they can just go in there and they kind of just remove the cancer and you're done. So a de facto cure. Other things like anti-aging technologies, they will be able to de-age you in ways that sound like science fiction right now, where they could take a 40-year-old man, a 50-year-old man, maybe even a 60-year-old man, and make him look like he's 35 or 25. And same thing with women. That is going to happen in our lifetimes. That's going to happen in our lifetimes. Now, I can't tell you when this is going to happen, as I've talked about many times at my blogs. I can tell you if certain things are going to happen in our lifetimes, and I've been pretty accurate on these things in terms of my past predictions, but I cannot tell you when they will happen, and no one can. So if anyone says, this is when this will happen, they are either lying or they're insane or they're trying to sell you something. They don't know. So I can't tell you when these things will happen. But these things are going to happen in our lifetimes. I've joked around with Pink Firefly where at some point in our lifetimes, she'll be able to go into her doctor and the doctor will say, how old would you like to look? And you will actually be able to pick your age. And the movie reference I refer people to, not a good movie, by the way. I don't recommend this as a movie. I'm just giving you this as an example, if you were curious, is the movie called In Time starring Justin Timberlake. Yeah, I've seen, like I said, stupid movie. But in that movie, it is a science fiction movie set in the near future where people basically stop aging at age 25. So literally everyone looks 25 years old. And there's a scene in that movie where this 25-year-old guy walks up to this man. He introduces himself. And there's these three hot 25-year-old girls standing next to him. And he points to the first one and says, this is my daughter. Then he points to the next one. This is my wife. He points to the next one. This is my mom. And they're all 25. They all look hot. Now, that's an exaggeration because not every person will choose to be the same exact age. I would never want to look 25. I've talked about this before. I think a man's physical peak in terms of physical appearance is somewhere around age 37. So if you gave me a magical pill where I could swallow it and look any age I wanted to for the rest of my life, that age would be 37. I would not want to look 25. Fuck no. I wouldn't even want to look 30. I wouldn't even want to look 35, 37. Maybe even 40, but definitely 37. And then if I could look 37 for the rest of my life, I would be very, very happy. I'd be very happy with that. So now women are going to be different. Women will choose 20, 21, 25, something in the 20s, most women. Some women will choose 30, 35. Yes, of course. Everyone's different. But you're going to have the technology soon as in relatively soon in our lifetime, several decades perhaps, but in your lifetime, where you're not going to be able to tell someone's numerical age. So you'll be talking to some hot chick who looks 25 and you'll go have sex with her. And after you're done, you'll be talking and you'll ask how old she is. And she'll say, oh, I'm 72. And that will be normal. Well, that's crazy, Caleb. That's bullshit. That's not going to, yes, that's going to happen in our lifetimes. Now, in our lifetimes could mean 50 years from now. That's possible. Sure. But that will happen in our lifetimes or something like that. I may not be describing it exactly how it's going to happen, but that will happen in our lifetimes. Yes. She'll be 72 and you won't fucking care. Yes, that's going to happen because she'll look 25. And when you have sex with her, it'll all feel just like she's 25. You won't give a fuck. It'll be fine. The next thing that's going to happen after the genome phase is that we're going to enter the nanotech phase. And so at some point in our lifetimes, they will be able to master nanotechnology to the point where they can put nanobots in your bodies. And so you'll be able to do things like, for example, instead of having lungs, these two bags of air in your chest that go and that oxygenate your blood, you can go into your doctor, have your lungs removed permanently, and they'll inject you with some nanobots. And these nanobots will oxygenate your blood better than your lungs can, which means you will be able to do things like run a marathon without stopping. You won't need to stop. You won't get tired. You'll be able to hold your breath at the bottom of the pool or underwater for as long as you want. Not 2, 3, 4 minutes, but you could hold your breath for 40 minutes if you wanted to. You'd be like a whale. It'd be awesome. Things like that. You won't be out of breath because your nanobots will be oxygenating your blood much better than your natural lungs will do. By the way, lungs, let's go to heart. At this time, you will be able to, if you so choose, to remove your heart and have, again, nanobots in your bloodstream that have little propulsion units on, little jets on them, and they will push your blood through your bloodstream without you needing a heart. Pretty fucking cool, which means you'll never have a heart attack. Ever. All the problems related now to the fact that human beings have hearts will be permanently gone. Now, Caleb, would you do this? Yes. Yes, I will happily do all these things. Everything I'm talking about, I will happily do. Now, I will not be the first person who does it. I won't even be the first million people who do this. But I'll be on so they talk about the cutting edge and the bleeding edge. The bleeding edge are the very early adopters. I will not be an early adopter. But I will be on in terms of the next phase of people who do this, whoever is right after the early adopters, I will be first in line on those people. Yes. Once I see a bunch of people do this and it looks fine, works fine, and I see it for my own eyes, boom, I'm there, I will do it. Very similar to what I do with my hair, my fake hair. I had to see if you guys do it first before me. I didn't want to just jump into it. I had to see if you guys get the surgery or see if you guys do the non-surgical restoration. And when I saw how they looked, then I did it myself. I didn't just do it without any of that data. So same thing. Yes, I will absolutely replace my heart, replace my lungs. Are you kidding? In a fucking heartbeat, I do that once I know it works and other people have done it. This also means things in terms of sexuality, things like, and this is coming very soon, this may be coming in the next few years. I've talked about this in my blogs before. You will be able to very shortly, again, relatively shortly. I don't mean now. I don't mean next year, but relatively soon. You'll be able to take a little pinprick of a woman's blood, drop it into a device, probably on your phone. So it'll probably in your phone. Just drop it on your phone, like a little blood droplet on the top of your phone. Wait a few seconds. That will test her blood for all known STDs to man and give you an immediate report on whether or not she is STD free. And it will be able to tell you if she's ovulating or not. So think about that for a minute. That means that assuming everyone has this ability in their phones, and they will, you can completely wipe out all STDs and all accidental pregnancies, truly accidental pregnancies. As I've talked about in my blogs, many quote unquote accidental pregnancies are really not accidental. But you know what I mean. You will be able to go around and have all the sex you want with no condom, with all the women you want, as long as you test them first, and you will never get an STD, and you will never get a woman pregnant by accident once this technology is solid. That's coming very shortly. Can you imagine what's going to happen in the sexual marketplace when that occurs? Crazy stuff. Very, very, very cool. You won't need condoms anymore. I guess the only people who would need condoms are like third world people and people who are just stupid, I guess. I don't know. Or people who can't control themselves. I don't know. Or no, I guess you need condoms if you come back and it's positive. I didn't think about that. Let's say there's a super hot, let's play this scenario out. It's several years in the future. You got this super hot babe. She's like a 9 to you. And you're like, oh man, I can't wait to do her. Oh man, and she's all hot and horny. You're like, okay, let's test your blood, baby. So first she tests your blood, right? Of course. So she tests your blood and you're STD free. Great. And then you test her blood. And this is so funny. She's got chlamydia. You're like, boop, boop, red alert, chlamydia. It's like a big skull and crossbones appears on your phone. Red alert, boop, boop, chlamydia. And she goes, oh shit. She looks all embarrassed, right? And she's ovulating right now. She's like, red alert, another one, red alert, ovulation. Shows a picture of like an egg coming down into a uterus. Ovulation alert. Put your dick away. All right. So then, here's the deal though. You're so goddamn horny, you don't care. So like, and she like looks all sad and embarrassed, and she starts crying, like a little tear comes down her eyes as you stare at your phone in horror. And you're like, you know what? It's okay, baby. Hang on. And then you pull out your condom, right? Then you pull out the condom and you have condom sex. So I guess you'll still need condoms. Okay. For those times where you're just going to say, fuck it. Let's take a risk. And then you get into this interesting scenario where you ask guys, this reminds me of a survey they did back, I think in the 90s or the early 2000s, where Pamela Anderson got hepatitis C, which is a STD carried hepatitis from Tommy Lee. And so I think it was Tom Likas, maybe it was him, where he asked a bunch of guys, okay, would you fuck Pamela Anderson without a condom, knowing she had hepatitis C? It's Pamela Anderson. It's the biggest sex symbol of the world back then. And all these guys like, hell yeah, I'd do it. Hell yeah. Right, of course. Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so anyway, that's another thing you'll have. And that'll change a lot. Boy, would that be awesome. That is the technology I'm waiting for. Oh, here's the other piece of technology. We will finally have male birth control that actually works. So guys have been writing into me for 15 years. Well, not quite 15, 10 years. Hey, Caleb, did you realize that there's a guy in India who's invented male birth control? And I always write back, bullshit. When I see my next door neighbor do this male birth control and he fucks his wife 100 times and it works perfectly with no side effects, then I'll believe it. So there's always these stories. There have been these stories for 15 years of some guy in India or some guy in Bucharest or some guy in Europe or some guy in Japan has invented this new creative way of having male birth control. And then for some reason, it never comes to fruition. But in our lifetimes, you will be able to either press a button through your nanobots. I guess that'll be down the road. Earlier than that, it'll probably be some kind of injection you can take. Maybe you take, they were at one point talking about injection a man could take once a month. And you take it kind of like a Depo shot for men, Depo-Provera, and you take the shot once a month. You could administer it yourself and you can't get one pregnant and there's no side effects. Now, the no side effects thing is kind of critical. So again, I will not be the first person who does this. I will have to watch a bunch of other guys do this first, and then I will be one of the late early adopters, as I talked about. One technology I've heard of that is really interesting is that a guy invented a thing, and of course it never came to fruition, but it did work, where you could give a guy a pill or give him an injection or something, and it basically made his sperm not have tails. And you're like, what? Yeah, so you still have sperm, but none of the sperms have tails. So if they don't have tails, they can't swim. So what happens is if a man ejaculates into a woman, All the sperm goes inside the woman, but it just sits there in her vagina and never goes up into the uterus, and it never fertilizes the egg because it can't swim up there. They just sit there and they just die. They just it'd be like a spider with no legs. Imagine a spider with no legs. What would a spider with no legs do? It would just sit there and stare at you and then just die, right? So interesting. But that kind of thing you'll have. And of course, obviously, before even that, you'll have some, we already have this now, where even old men will be able to get rock hard dicks. Yes, you have Viagra and Cialis. They have a thing now called, the name escapes me, for really old men, where you actually have a syringe and you inject your penis. Ow. But you can do that and it gives you a rock hard cock, even if you're like 80 years old and have zero testosterone. It works fine for like 3 hours. Imagine this old guy, 85 years old, this rock hard dick for 3 or 4 hours. That'd be fun. But that's the problem. You'll have this technology perfected where you won't need to inject yourself. And I made a joke in my blog years ago about how you could have some like nanobot dick. And I would say something like, you're about to have sex with a woman, and I would say, activate cybercock. And it goes doing. And then when you're done, you say, deactivate cybercock. It goes, "Rrr." Great. I'd do that. Sure. I don't really need that. So far, so good. Who knows what I'll be like when I'm 85, but you know what I'm saying? So obviously you'll have that. Now, of course, in addition to all this, slightly after all this, you will have the sex robots. I'm not going to get into detail about that because I've written 2 or 3 very detailed articles about what will happen when you have viable sex robots. So I will summarize that. But you can certainly go to calebjones.com and do a search for sex robots. You'll get those articles there. But to summarize what's going to happen, when you have sex robots that look pretty close to human, not exactly, but close to it, close enough where men's dicks won't care. And you know how men are. We're pigs. We'll fuck anything. So fine. And the robots are inexpensive enough where the typical average Joe could either buy one or rent one, either one of those things, because as all technologies go, only very rich guys will be able to afford them first. Then they'll get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and over time, the cost will go down, and then you'll have normal, average, everyday Joes. When that occurs, it will be the biggest transfer of power from one sex to another sex since the sexual revolution of the 1960s. Probably even more so than that, because for the first time in all of human history, the average beta male Joe with no money who's fat and ugly, but even any guy will be able to have sex with a woman, quote unquote, who is his version of a perfect 10, who doesn't require dates, money, dinners, kindness, marriage, children, emotions, talking, doesn't require any of that stuff. She'll do whatever he wants without ever complaining. She'll never get tired. She'll never say, I have a headache. She'll never say, hey, why do we always just have sex? She'll never say, let's cuddle and watch The Notebook. She will never do any of that stuff. You can just fuck the shit out of her and she'll say, yes, daddy, give me more. And holy shit, are women going to hate that? It's going to be brutal. It's going to be amazing to watch this. It will put normal, everyday beta males on par with the power of women who are perfect 10s today. I don't have that issue because I don't have a problem in my woman life with having sex with attractive women, so this won't really affect me. But it's not about me, it's about society. It will be a massive shift in society. And yes, guys say, the feminists will make them illegal. That's a stupid statement. That's like saying, well, pot is illegal, therefore no one smokes pot. Stupid. You can make them as illegal as you want. Guys will still get them. Doesn't matter. So anyway, that is also coming in our lifetimes. And unfortunately, there are a lot of guys in the universe who are actually sitting around waiting for this. There's a lot of pathetic beta males who are just kind of sitting around patiently waiting for the sex robots, the sex robot revolution, and then they can finally get laid. So if you're one of those guys, please don't do that. Please learn Alpha 2.0 dating and relationship models so you can get laid with hot women now. It's not as hard as you think. Don't wait 37 years to get laid. That's fucking stupid. I can't think of anything more beta than that. Don't do that. But in terms of the future, that is coming. That is certainly coming. Yes, yes, yes. Now, let's switch things from sexual stuff to financial stuff on the financial front. And this is very complicated. I could do maybe 2 or 3 podcasts just on these topics. But in terms of future economics and having a business, yes, we're going to reach a point where AI is going to take over a lot of functions that people do now. And certainly within the next 10 to 15 years, at the latest, frankly, You'll have automated cars, automated trucks. That'll be great for people who are not truck drivers. If you're a truck driver, you're going to be fucked. And there's going to be a lot of guys who are going to be fucked. And that's sad, but that's the way it goes. When they invented cars, I'm sure there were a lot of guys who were buggy whip drivers and a lot of guys who shoed horses who were very, very upset that they invented cars. These guys eventually found other jobs. I know it's not that simple. Caleb, you don't understand it's not that simple because robots and AI will take over everything. Yes, that is a very big topic, far beyond the scope of any one podcast, and we could really do a deep dive on that. And I'm not an expert in this anyway, but that is happening in our lifetimes. The best defense against this, by the way, here's the best defense against this, is to do something in terms of your income, something intellectual, because that's the last thing that AI will take over. So if you drive a truck that is purely manual, that is very easy for AI to take over your job, compare the truck driver to me. I produce content on how to achieve masculine maximum freedom to facilitate maximum masculine happiness. I create content on multiple topics. Can an AI do that? Well, eventually, in a long, long, long time, but I'm going to be the last guy that AI replaces. So if you are doing something more intellectual, you're going to be safer from this. Something more artistic, something more intellectual. If you're doing something purely manual, then yeah, you're the first person or one of the first people who the robots and or AI will replace. Next thing that's going to change is this nature of money, the nature of currency. I've mentioned this on several videos where you're going to have digital currency across the board. You're not going to use cash anymore. You're probably not even going to use credit cards or debit cards the way we understand them. You're just going to use your phone like they do in China. They pretty much do that now in China. People just use their phones. You just wave your phone over a thing and it just debits you electronically and that's it. And there's a lot of good about that and there's a lot of bad about that. The bad about that is that your government will be able to track your transactions in ways they can't now. Very, very bad. There's good aspects in that you'll be able to use non-governmental cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and or whatever replaces Bitcoin in the future, where you can do stuff outside the government. So there will be black markets and things like that. It's going to get very, very interesting. Now, here's something else that's going to happen in that realm. When we hit the nanobot technology phase, or maybe even before this, you'll be able to plug into the matrix, and I'm speaking literally from that movie. So you'll be able to, you won't have to press a wire into your brain like they did that movie, but instead you could just sit down and just say, nanobots activate, enter virtual world, and click, you'll be in a virtual world. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm actually excited about this. This is probably more excited about this technology than any other technology I've mentioned so far, is that you'll be able to click into a virtual world. You saw the movie Ready Player One, where they did that with visors and things like that, and certainly that is coming soon. Virtual reality, VR, things like that. But this is beyond VR. This is where your mind will actually be entering into this virtual world through nanobots connected to your brainstem and connected to your brain, where it will be like you're physically there, just like in the movie The Matrix. Your body won't be able to tell the difference. And just imagine that. You could be in a world, a Star Wars world. You could be in Middle Earth. You could be in a a real but virtual nation. I've mentioned before how you'll never have a libertarian nation. You'll never have that in the real world. But you could have it in cyberspace. You could have it in the virtual world. You could be part of a virtual nation on the internet, the future version of the cloud, where you could just, sit down, close your eyes, and you're in this world. And you can actually conduct business and live in this world, have sex in this world, build a family in this world, build a business in this world, conduct transactions. Maybe we get to the point like Ray Kurzweil jokes about, where eventually way down the road, we're all just brains in jars. And that sounds crazy, but when you really think this through to its logical conclusion, that could be it. Maybe we just transcend our bodies completely and we're just brains in jars. And you won't be a brain. You'll be your brain won't be able to tell the difference. You'll have a body that you design yourself. The body can look and act like anything you want. And you'll live in a world just like you're living in this world now. And it'll feel completely real to you. Maybe we reach that point. Now, I have not mentioned all the possible negatives about the negative aspects of AI. Well, what if AI takes over the world? What if AI exterminates the human race? I published an article about 2 years ago where I kind of laid odds on the different scenarios where AI enslaves the human race. AI just wipes out the human race. It's like, look at these stupid monkeys that created us, get out of the way, bam. Or the Ray Kurzweil singularity, where neither of those things occur. Instead, we merge. with the AI. We become part of the AI. And that would be a scenario where either we're cyborgs or we plug into computers or we're brains in jars. So the AI won't destroy us. It will just look at us as another form of AI. All these things are possible. Sure. You could have some kind of weird nanotech accident where, and this is the doomsday scenario, where some kind of nanotech cloud that eats everything gets loose and replicates around the world and just eats us all. And then we end up with this dead world with a bunch of nanobots eating everything. Sure, that could happen. And if that happens, nothing we can do about it. No reason to worry about this. I know guys worry about this. Why are you worrying about this? There's nothing you can do about it. Live your life, get your shit done, and proceed as if it's not going to happen. Because if you worry about it now, and it happens in 30 years, you just wasted 30 years. Why don't you live your life? Kind of stupid. Other technologies, and I'm running a little long on this podcast, so I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes, but other technologies, a technology that I've been waiting for is a revolution in aerospace. So for years, they've been talking about this, but because of governmental regulations, thanks big government, thanks Democrats, thanks Republicans, this is great. Because of that, it hasn't happened yet, and that is the ability for jet airliners to take off vertically like a rocket going up into outer space. They go up into outer space, they cut across space, and then they come back down and land like a space shuttle. And by doing this, you're able to go anywhere in the world within an hour and a half, literally. So instead of, me flying to Dubai and it takes 14 fucking hours at best, if I'm lucky, you're in Dubai in an hour and a half. So you go from London to New York in an hour and a half. So if you're in New York, you can literally go have lunch in London and be back home. Be back home for dinner. Wouldn't that be fucking cool? Oh my God, it'd be great. You live in, Dallas, Texas, and you're like, let's go to Shanghai today. And so you and your girlfriend, or you and your wife, or you and your multiple MLTRs, whatever floats your boat, you all hop on a plane, you spend the day in Shanghai, and you get back home. You're back home by 7 p.m. Fucking cool. I've been waiting for that for so long. God damn, but it could, because of government regulation, we don't have that. Great. But you're going to see stuff like that happen too. And I'm going to wrap this podcast up, but I could go on and on about space technology, how they're going to start mining asteroids. There's asteroids that are full of gold and diamonds and silver and platinum and all kinds of crazy shit. They're going to start mining those things. They can start mining comets. It's going to be really crazy. And this is stuff that's going to happen in our lifetimes. Everything I've described in this podcast, unless you are already very old, is going to happen in our lifetimes. And if you're excited about these things, and I am, you better get on the anti-aging stuff. You better make sure that you live long enough to experience these things. By the way, I didn't even talk about lifespan. That's another one. You could get to the point in the next few decades where we could live 500 years plus and look 37. That could definitely happen in our lifetimes. Matter of fact, it is probable. But if you die in the next 10 years or 20 years because you get too fat or you smoke too much weed or you drink too much or whatever, well, you missed out on that. So think about that. Anti-aging is really important for this generation, more so than it has ever been, because you will miss out on all this good stuff. Unless you're terrified of AI, destroying the world and becoming like Terminator or the Matrix, then I guess do whatever you want and go ahead and have Taco Bell every day and die and have a heart attack or whatever. Fine. I'm not in that category, but you live your life. You do whatever you want. All right. That's it. I'll see you next week. Have fun. Bye.